This thing's choking the shit out of me. Choking my chicken. Why am I taking that? So I've got this thing turbocharged now. I don't know if you can hear it. The amount of boost I'm making, I have no idea. So if anybody's asking that, I don't know yet. It's pretty damn cool though. Oh shit, oh Jesus. I know it's not like crazy fast, but this thing is fun with a turbo. It's literally just spinning the back wheel like... I guess I'll give you a quick little rundown on this. So in order to hook this up to this, what I did, it went through a little bit of trial and error. So the first time I hooked it up, I ended up doing a draw-through setup, which is where the carburetor would be on the intake of the turbocharger. And that didn't work too well because it just kept revving, and then it was pulling oil through, and it was smoking, and it wouldn't run right, and I couldn't get tuned for, you know, if my life depended on it. So I ended up doing it this way, and it actually worked better this way because now the exhaust AC goes out, and then the air filter's kind of right here where it's getting as much cold air as it can possibly get. For the oil lines and everything, the way I have the oil lines plumbed, yes, I've got a slight oil leak. It's just the oil return line, not a big deal. It just drips a tiny bit here and there. I bought this oil cooler adapter plate. I'll put everything in the description if you want to do a project of turbocharging your pit bike too. This turbocharger adapter plate I got for 25 or 30 bucks. It's CNC machined and everything like that, and it's supposed to have an output here. It goes to a oil cooler, and then an input, and then it puts oil pressure back to your camshaft. In order to modify this a little bit, it didn't have any chamber going across, so inside of here I had to cut a chamber with a drill bit and make a small chamber set and then plug this off, because you cannot feed full oil pressure to any kind of turbocharger, otherwise it'll blow oil seals out and it'll just smoke a whole bunch, and you don't want that. What I did is I made a chamfer that allows oil pressure to go to the turbo and to the camshaft, but not to this one right here. This used to be the return. That's just plugged off. So up here I have a banjo bolt inside that is, I don't know how well you can see anything, but I have a banjo bolt in there connected to this this transmission cooler line is what I'm using for the tubing, and it's got a number 50 Kaihin pilot jet in there to restrict oil flow to the turbo, because you don't want full pressure to your turbo. And then for the return line, as you can see right here, it just comes down and it goes into the intake valve tappet. I had to modify that a little bit because I had issues with it, you know, holding the valve open and stuff, and I ended up fixing that. And to get this to run right, I had to set the valve clearance pretty far apart. Basically what that does is it kind of changes your overlap to your cam timing in a way. You don't want any overlap with a turbo, because otherwise you're fresh charge out rather than burning it, and it's not going to run sufficiently. So anyways, moving on, what the wastegate used to connect to was this fitting right here. Since I don't have a wastegate anymore, I put a T in here. I'm going to redo all this stuff and make it look a lot nicer at some point, but I don't know if you can see this. There's a T fitting here. So what it does is when it goes under boost, it gives air pressure to your fuel tank up here. As you can see, it pressurizes the fuel tank, but it also has to pressurize the carburetor. So you can see here's a line right here. It goes to the carburetor. I have this blocked off, and surprisingly, this is doing really, really well without a fuel pump. Usually you're supposed to have a fuel pump on carbureted engines that are boosted with a 1-to-1 ratio, which I think is every PSI equals an extra PSI that you need. So basically 6 PSI, you need 12 PSI of fuel pressure. But I don't think I'm running that much. I want to say, in all honesty, it's probably running 2 or 3, maybe 4 PSI at the most. I haven't put a boost gauge on this yet, so I'm not sure. But I used pieces of radiator hose and pieces of my old 450R exhaust and hose clamps to clamp everything together, because I thought it would be fine without the hose clamps at first, but it actually was building enough boost that it was blowing these lines off, and it's a really interesting sound, I'll tell you that much. This is really the only thing I had to plug off was this, and then put this into here so that way it would have a good throttle response, because you got to pressurize your fuel bowl to the equal pressure or slightly more than how much boost you are creating. And I found out that it seems to work just fine when I'm running the same amount of boost into the carburetor that is going into the engine. As for the jetting on here, this is an aftermarket carburetor. It is a 26 millimeter Kaihin knockoff and it's just a barrel slide type, kind of like the old two-strokes use, like the CR85s and stuff, but it's a 26 millimeter. I have the needle setting, I believe it's the second clip from the top, which makes, or second clip from the bottom, which is really, really rich. The main jet, it is a 115 size Kaihin style jet that is in there, and I think that's pretty much about it. I'm not doing this to go and beat people or to show off my dirt bike is so much faster than anybody else's. This is all just purely for fun. So anybody that wants to hate or anything like that, or your blaster is faster or your CRF is faster, yes, I know. I'm not doing this for competition purposes. I'm doing this for my own fun, and I thought it would be cool to share with you guys. So if you want to do it, you're going to need a VZ21 turbo. Get yourself a 26 millimeter carburetor. You're going to want a couple of adapters possibly to adapt to the turbo, or if you have welding skills, you can make your own. And that's really about it. And you need some transmission cooler line and some sort of banjo fittings to fit in here. I had to make my own banjo bolt because I couldn't find a banjo fitting that would fit that just right. And good thing I noticed that. My coil wires are resting right on the turbo and they're getting real hot. But I basically just plumbed the tranny cooler line up to the turbo, and then the oil drain just goes back to the intake tappet. And you need to set your valve clearances to double vacation is. So like mine, it's I think I have it set at 8 thousandths for the intake, or 6 thousandths, something like that, and I know it's 10 for the exhaust. And my welding skills aren't the best, but I think it turned out all right for a guy in his shed. You know, I gotta fix this still because it's melting the plastic, but I'm not on the trail. There's still some things here and there I gotta do to it, of course. Like, I got to make this turbo mounted a little better because it's just being held on by two little, 3/16 bolts or 6 millimeter bolts, whatever you call it, with 10 millimeter fasteners. Upshifted too much. You got to get your shifts just right, I noticed too, because it's trying to boost up when the engine goes down in RPM. So I need to figure out something for a wastegate, or I mean a blow-off valve. Oh shit, I need downshift. Shit. Here, I'll stall it so you guys can hear the turbo. Alright guys, I hope you enjoy that video. I'm going to go home and build a mount for the turbo so it's not being hung by the exhaust manifold bolts.